Mr. Waters is with us as well. Let's call the July 28th Finance Committee meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Daryl,
Aye.
and I am aye. So we have an agenda. Okay, first order on the agenda is to review our June 23rd Finance Committee meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Waters
Aye.
and Daryl.
Aye.
And I say aye. So we have accepted the minutes of the June 23rd meeting. The first item on, now we have two visitors, and I don't know which item that, I kind of assume which item that they want to speak about. Do I have a confirmation that the item that they want to speak about is the golf cart resolution?
That's correct, Chairman Cunningham.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Robertson, appreciate it. Okay, the first ordinance and under ordinances, we have ordinance 2020-22, an ordinance appropriating funds received for painting of a fire department vehicle. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, roll call on ordinance 2020-22, Mr. Waters
Aye.
and Daryl,
Aye.
and I'm aye. So that has been recommended unanimously. Ordinance 2020-23, an ordinance accepting and appropriating a COPS hiring program grant. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Do I hear a second? I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay. Discussion. Committee? No discussion? Okay. Roll call on that. Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Daryl,
Aye.
and I'm aye, and that has been recommended unanimously. And I think we had the first reading on that already at BOMA, if I'm not mistaken.
I think, yes, ma'am.
Okay, under resolutions, resolution 2020-42, a resolution accepting a donation from the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation by the Hendersonville Police Department. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Okay, and I'll second that. Any discussion? Okay, let's call a roll call again. Resolution 2020-42, Mr. Waters
Aye.
and Daryl,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. So that got recommended unanimously. Resolution 2020-44, a resolution authorizing the issuance and payment of an interfund loan not to exceed $175,000, transferring from the general fund to the Country Hills Golf Course Fund. Do I hear a motion on that?
So moved.
Second.
A discussion, and I know there's going to be discussion on that. Committee first. Daryl?
I've been in communication with Robert. He's got some spreadsheets. Robert, you want to go ahead and throw those up?
Sure. We'll see if I do. Make sure I have authority to do so first.
Yes, of course. Yeah, Robert shared them with me yesterday as well. Thank you.
Sure. One moment and I will have that. Please let me know if you do not see the spreadsheet in front of you. First is, this looks a lot more complicated than it is, so I'll give you a quick rundown. Green line here being cash coming in, red being cash going out, and blue being the actual cash balance in the bank for the golf course fund. As you can see, over the years, during the winters, tend to be a little higher expenditures, and the blue line is not cash in the bank, that is liabilities and everything combined. That is not actual cash in the bank. Cash in the bank has always been above zero, so I don't want anyone to get that assumption. Though if all liabilities came calling at once during some of these lower months that you'll see, we would eventually have dipped underneath, and the city would have supplemented, been forced to supplement in that case. However, that has not occurred, and at least not in any recent years that I'm not aware of. So long story short, over the past few years, as you can see, the golf course has been self-funding essentially, though through these winter months, they do occasionally borrow upon the line of credit, as we call it, with the city. And then each year that they have done that, they have paid that back. And you'll see the most recent here, this drop off in blue for at the very last month of June, we've seen cash sort of drop off for the golf course, and that is them paying back what they borrowed. In this major spike right here would be the city funding $30,000, and the golf course being able to pay that back in their their prime months, as you would call it. You're looking at projected forward for 2020. There has been, quite a lot of discussion on with this golf course, with these golf carts, can the city or the golf course take on an extra $3,000? And that actually is in the golf course's budget for going forward. And with one moment, I will have something in front of you here. But this is kind of from this point on, the golf course's budgeted expenditures. I'm assuming, are you seeing an Excel spreadsheet in front of you? I apologize. I hope I have that correct. If it's a PDF document, I apologize.
We just still have the same one in front of
Okay.
us.
All right, I will share a new screen then. I apologize. All right, one moment here. There we are. So going forward from this point on is showing sort of budgeted expenditures. I know you can't see what I'm pointing at here, but from June and July should be the break here, and going forward at the golf course's budget does actually have, beginning in what looks like August, or excuse me, it is September, paying back a $3,000 a month loan, interfund loan to the city. It's based on current history from 2018 forward. I would say absolutely the golf course is trending in a direction to be able to pay that back and take on those expenditures. And additionally, so they already pay $900 a month to us, and that should be dropping off sometime in the next year or so. So again, a comment was made, I believe, in Public Works Committee about the recommendation from Finance, and I would just echo that to say, rather than spend money, if the golf course is going to do this, if we are going to do it, I would absolutely say do the city fund it rather than pay additional funding in interest or in leasing. That's where our recommendation stood. I'm happy to take any questions on that. I know that briefly went over quite a lot, and probably skipped over what some would prefer to see, but I'll share here what's in your packet, just kind of a loan amortization of, month to month. I mean, the amount is unchanging over the next 5 years, but the page immediately following that would be if we financed it, we would ultimately end up spending somewhere around $19,000 additional, possibly more, depending on interest rates, or whether the compound of the interest is monthly, semi-monthly, those factors obviously would affect it too. And the last sheet in your packet here shows kind of rounds per month. And I know Mr. Ray is on the call as well, could probably speak a little better to this, but year over year, this kind of shows over the last, looks like the last 12 months, but definitely has a comparison there to show that they're certainly up. And I believe they've been up since 2014, if I'm not mistaken, year over year. But happy to take any questions and
Yeah, I have some questions, Robert.
Sure.
And before I speak, I sent Robert an email letting him know I plan to support this. So before everyone gets upset at me for asking these questions, I have committed to support this. My question is, if a citizen were to pull up our CAFR and look at business activities, which is what the golf course is actually listed under, they see that revenues are below expenses. So how would we explain that to the average citizen, that the golf course has the money to pay us back, always has, but yet their expenses exceed revenue?
I think, I think a part of that has to do partially with cost of goods sold and how that's reported on the golf courses side. If I could for a moment, I will try and do a new share. What tends to get confusing, well, there we are. This is the golf course's budget. In front of you, should be on your screen here. We talk about general total income, but then we go and remove cost of goods sold moving forward. And so what is usually used as a reporting measure on the golf courses side as 636 is certainly showing a lot closer to their operating expenses. And then you take in any capital expenditures, any debt service on that end. When you take out that cost of goods sold, we end up a lot closer to our net operating income. However, they have been year over year quite a bit. That they have had an income rather than net loss year over year. I know that's probably a little high level, and I would love to answer, to dig into the weeds one-on-one and show you where this comes out. But in all honesty, this taking out cost of goods sold tend to cause a lot of confusion, and I totally understand why someone might not know that, because we don't. The city doesn't report that the same way. This being a business enterprise, we have two separate reporting measurements that we have to show.
Thank you. And basically where I'm at is plan to support it, have no problem doing it, because I believe any loss is being generated when golfers stop at Thornton's to get gas or beer or what have you. So at the end of the day, I'm happy with the overall cash flow of the golf course, and I'm happy to support this and recommend approval.
Okay, anybody, Mr. Waters, did you have any comments?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Is my colleague Alderman Robertson, are you on the queue?
I'm here, yes.
You and I have talked about the golf course in the past, and I think you're part of the program. Can you share some insight on the age of these golf carts? In your opinion, what you think is wrong? Are they just wore out? Or are they just give us your opinion on them, if you don't mind?
Well, thank you, Alderman Waters. And I am a co-sponsor along with Alderman Hayes. Of course, the golf course is in Alderman Hayes's ward, and I'm on the golf commission. We also have the president of the golf commission Chris Maynard on the line with us, as well as a member, Lynn Ray from the management group. Tina, could you put on the screen, the Country Hills overhead that I have prepared to summarize, I think, where we're at? Tina?
Sorry, I'm sharing. Let me cancel that, and then I believe Tina can do it.
Can you enlarge
Ready.
that, Tina? Please enlarge it so we can read it. I'm going to just give a very level overview of this. I've got 3 points to make. You know, Country Hills is really a recreational gym for the city. And we really don't expect the other facilities in our parks and recreation department to turn a profit or even break even. But the golf course, through efficient of the management group, they are operationally self-sufficient. So it's a gym for the city. I will say that the golf course does provide discounts for first responders. So far this year, we've had 180 rounds played by our firemen and policemen. And like any city asset, reinvestments in the facility are needed periodically. So the Golf Commission has unanimously agreed to request the city finance the purchase of new carts. The golf carts are a necessary investment. This is a want, not a need. Country Hills, if any of you have played it, is a very hilly golf course, and it's very hard on the life of carts. Every year, the maintenance of carts goes up. The expected maintenance of carts to keep them safe and operational, if we keep the current fleet for this coming fiscal year, is between $40,000 and $60,000. That's pouring money in old trucks and old vehicles. I think you can understand the analogy. The current fleet, due to its age and condition, could pose safety concerns. Because of the hills, because of the brakes going bad, because of the tires, it could pose a safety concern. Normally, carts are replaced on most golf courses 3 to 5 years. Our fleet has been in use for 7 years, and they are fully depreciated out. 100% of the carts at Country Hills that we have, embarrassingly so, have duct tape on the seats and the covers. I mean, it's really embarrassing to the city for guests to come play there to see the duct tape on every one of the golf cart seats. And also, new carts are likely to bring in investment, more tournaments, and more tax revenues to Country Hills and the city. Last year, Country Hills generated $30,000 in sales tax revenue. Can you scroll down, Tina, just a little? Golf carts are a prudent investment. Country Hills has agreed and put in its budget to pay back over 60 months the loan to the city for the 72 carts. Country Hills has an excellent credit rating with the city. As Robert said, every time that they have borrowed money from us in the winter months when play is bad or non-existent, they have paid those loans back to the city. The golf carts, as far as revenue generators, generate $130,000 in revenue to the golf course, and $80,000 of that is profit. So the profit sheet on golf carts is strong. Country Hills' balance sheet, as Robert said, is strong and in the black with growing reserves. I do want to state that the demand by city residents for Country Hills justifies the loan for carts. Hills is showing significant increases in popularity and greater demand. For example, in May, June of this year, there had been 8,714 rounds, 18-hole rounds played, and that is the highest since 2013. So the demand and popularity of Country Hills in the city is growing. Now, the golf course, in anticipation of this loan, has increased rates. They knew that their payment to the city was going to require new, so they, beginning June 1st, have increased the rates that players play, and that increase in generate $20,500 in new revenue. So that's just kind of a summary that I think that this makes sense as far as a necessary investment, a prudent investment, and for an investment that will continue to make this golf course that was donated by Conway Twitty, as you know, a recreational gym for the city. Alderman Hayes, if you got anything you'd like to add on that, thank you, Alderman Waters. For
One more question for you, Alderman Robinson, if you don't mind. In your opinion, and I'm sure you're right on top of this, are these carts in a situation where we could be exposed to some liability, in your opinion?
Well, I want to be careful what I say on the record.
Well, I'm referring to the condition of the carts, the wheels, the tires, whatever. You mentioned duct tape a while ago.
Yeah.
So that made me start thinking about a liability here. So say what you can. I would appreciate it.
Yeah, if we can use these carts, we're going to have to sink a lot of money in the maintenance of those carts to make sure they're safe. New brakes, new tires, new batteries, and it's a very expensive venture. I believe right now that some of the carts could be a dangerous situation, and that's why the Golf Commission and that's why Alderman Hayes and myself are bringing this resolution for the consideration of Finance Committee.
These carts that you have now, will they be replaced by the new ones, or what would happen to them?
Yes, those will be traded in, and there'll be about a $2,000 trade-in on new carts. New carts cost around $4,000 to $4,200. I'm sorry, $4,000 to $4,200 a piece. So that trade-in value will lower the cost of that. Now, the Parks Department has also requested several of these carts from Country Hills that they're going to use in the park system. But all the carts, all the old carts will be traded in or used by other departments in the city, and new carts will replace them, 72 new carts.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sure Andy Gilley will give us a fair return on the ones he takes to the park. Thank you, Alderman Robinson. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Are you finished, Alderman Waters?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Done? Okay. Okay, first I want to hear from the other aldermen and staff, and then we're going to hear from our two guests. So who wants to go first? Does any of the staff have any comments? Andy?
I'm happy to make a motion to approve again. I didn't get a second, but
I second it. Yeah, I will.
I mean, I don't think anyone's disputing we need to do it. I just had questions earlier.
Absolutely. I agree.
If they want to speak, they can. I'm just saying they don't need to tell me. I'm ready to go now.
I just have a few comments before we vote. My first comment is that we just came out of our budget about approximately 30 days ago. And this is what concerns me. Number one, we have a razor thin general fund. And everybody seems so concerned about that 30 days ago. And now we're asking to tap into the general fund by $175,000. I'm not disputing the fact that we need to do this. What I'm disputing is the timing of it. And I would be more on board if we delay the process for 6 months. Like we said, we're going to review the budget at that time. And those are my comments. I mean, we passed the budget with no raises. We passed the budget with a razor thin general fund. We had to cut. I mean, we were at a bare minimum here. And those are my concerns. I'm not disputing that we need to do this, but I'm just disputing that the timing is not practical, in my opinion. Thank you. Are we ready to vote?
I am.
I am
Ready,
too.
Chairman?
Madam Chairman, let me
Okay.
ask one more question, if I may. This could be to Alderman Robinson again. Do we have to replace all these at one time, or can we do half and then half later?
it may be better for Lynn Ray. He's with the management group to address that question, Alderman Waters. I mean, the matter that we took up was to replace them all so that we have a new fleet. You know, it's important to have a complete new fleet because of tournaments and because of the play is so demanding. But Lynn, do you want to address that if the chairman would allow?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I wanted to hear from because the guests already had signed up, so I wanted to show. And Alderman Robertson, you did a fantastic job on the presentation and the research. Thank you.
Well, Alderman
Miss-
Hayes gave me a lot of help.
And Alderman Hayes, okay.
That's all I have, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Waters. Mr. Ray, did you want to?
Thank you to the group for considering our request. At the end of the day, Mr. Waters, there obviously we could replace carts a third or half or the entire fleet. I think if you look at the value of the net of the trade-in that we currently have in our existing fleet, and you looked at the volume discount, if you will, of 72 versus 36, I think we'd end up with a better value to trade in the entire fleet at one time versus piecemealing that through the process. In addition to that, we would still have some of the expenses that Mr. Robertson discussed as it relates to keeping the other 36 carts in a safer and more dependable condition. So I'm not, probably would not be prepared tonight to answer the exact economic impact of that, but I would say that over that time, whether it be 6 months from now or a year from now, it would be a pretty substantial difference in pricing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Waters, do you have anything else?
No, thank you. That was explained great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any of the staff? Mayor, do you have any comments?
I got a question, if
Sure.
that's okay. And I
Yeah,
don't want to waste any
absolutely.
more time. So whoever has the answer, they can send it to me privately. So I didn't move here until 2006. I don't know anything of the history of the golf course, but if I understood correctly, it was told that Conway Twitty donated the golf course to the city. So did he give us the land and then we developed the golf course, or did he build the golf course and then just give it to us? Or what's the actual history of how the city ended up with it? I'm just curious.
He gave us the land.
I think Mr. Ray can answer that. He's shaking his head back there.
At the end of the day, I think there's and I can get that to you, Mr. Woodcock, to make sure I'm exactly correct on the history.
I didn't hear what you said before that.
I'm sorry, I can get that information to you to make sure I'm exactly correct, but there was I think at one point there was going to be a donation, but there was a lag in the acceptance of that donation and the city ended up getting charged.
Yeah. I love that. I love history and how things work.
A small amount of that.
Yeah.
And then it was developed by another management company that was supposed to take operational charge. And when they figured out that they couldn't make any money, they walked away in the middle of the night.
Oh, wow. That's the stuff I love. Yeah. So yeah, if you can give me the history, I'm a history buff.
can
I
do
like
that.
knowing everything. And like, I think I heard there used to be Conway Twitty's farm and he developed it and all that stuff. So I'm curious to know the truth.
We can make that work.
Okay, are we ready, committee?
Yes,
Move
ma'am.
to approve.
All right, Alderman, roll call, Alderman Waters,
Aye.
Alderman Woodcock,
Aye.
and I will say no. So that is recommended 2-1. Okay, next item on the agenda is Resolution 2020-44, a resolution to apply for a Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee Foundation Healthy Places Program Grant. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, staff? All right, roll call, Alderman Waters,
Aye.
Darrell,
Aye.
and I, and that's recommended unanimously. Resolution 2020-45, a resolution authorizing the transfer of $30,000 from the Public Works Department assets, $7,000 and up line item to the Public Works Department Golf Course HVAC line item. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A discussion. I discussed this with Robert yesterday briefly. And I'd like to hear from our Public Works Director on why we're spending an extra $30,000 to relocate the HVAC line on the golf course. Do I have our Public Works Director on?
I don't
don't
believe.
believe he-
Robert, could you,
Best I can explain it, and I don't know if Mr. Gilly has any more information than I do, but he
I could
may.
probably help you out pretty quickly.
okay, great, thanks.
This was discussed in Public Works earlier. Marshall went over everything. Basically, when they started doing the project, it was discovered that the old units were in the attic and not on the ground where they're easy to get to. The kind of an addendum to the work done was to move the new units out of the attic and down to the ground. Mr. Ray can kind of explain that if he needs to. I guess it would make it a whole lot easier to service over the years than climbing up in the attic and getting to things the way it needs to be properly done.
So,
That's the way that's the extra expense is to relocate them from the attic to the ground floor where they should have been in the first place.
so does that mean we're gonna have any savings, like utility savings or savings for manpower to maintain and service these units? Why,
I cannot answer that question. I just know.
I
that
don't understand that.
I know it's a very inappropriate place to have air conditioning units in the attic of the clubhouse.
I can't.
Madam Chairman, can I add, excuse me, go ahead, Robert.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, Alderman. I just was going to say I can't speak to placement of HVAC or anything like that, but from the financial side of things, when Marshall asked me about this originally and saying, can his budget cover the additional work, my answer to him was no, in the sense that our budget ordinance has this in it, but any capital work, any capital improvements or anything like that over $10,000 that wasn't originally approved by the board would need to then be approved by the board. Therefore, essentially, I couldn't budget and have the board approve a vehicle for any department and then turn around and go buy televisions or something like that. You know, like the board
Right.
obviously would want to approve a change in what they originally said. So that's part of why this is coming through, not just as a transfer, but the board actually should weigh in here if money is spent in a way that wasn't originally intended. And that's
I
kind
mean, I realize that we're not taking any additional funds out of the general fund, which is like, thank God we're not doing that. But I just wanted to know is it just an impractical thing to have air conditioning unit located in an attic versus like a basement or ground level?
I may have to
I wish Marshall was on, yeah.
Madam Chairman, can I ask Mr. Ray a question?
Oh, sure.
Mr. Ray, is this unit, as I understand it, is it in the attic now? Is it upstairs?
Yeah.
So this was a public works project from the start, Mr. Waters, as it related to the improvement of the golf course. My understanding of the process, just from being on site during construction, is the units, as Andy relayed, were relocated. The condensing units were relocated from up in the attic where they're very difficult to access as it relates to filters changing and everything, and upgrading the efficiency of the units when they were moved downstairs. There was also some discussion, if I recall, and Marshall would probably be able to speak to this much more than I, about the ability to put the new units in the same location upstairs without disassembling the current units and bringing them downstairs, as the access is very small in that area. So Mr. Waters, I'm not exactly, the new units are downstairs. They're more easily serviced. They're smaller, and I think they have a higher efficiency level. Other questions would be best suited probably towards Marshall.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Rack.
I think what I was trying to get across, when it was upstairs, did we have any problems at all back then before they was moved downstairs?
As it relates to service, we had a servicing, issue as far as making sure that everybody, we had an outside agency replace those filters and stuff like that. But they lasted they were the original units from the original construction of the clubhouse, 20-ish years.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm a little confused about the operation and why we need this money appropriated, but that's all I have, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Daryl, you have anything?
Madam Chairperson,
ma'am.
we have Marshall
Move to
Wilson
approve.
online.
Okay. Alderman Petrelli? Oh, did somebody say they wanted to? Oh,
I think Tina said that Marshall.
Marshall is joining.
Marshall. I see Marshall here. Marshall,
Yes, ma'am.
why are we doing this? We all want to know.
It's $1 million question. Like I said, if you don't mind, kind of get me up to speed on is it the resolution for the HVAC at the golf course?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes,
We,
sir.
we encountered, it's kind of going back several months. It's a long story, but the golf course had their HVAC units were in the attic. Yeah, I can't explain why they were in the attic, but for some reason they were in the attic. And so we looked at moving them out of the attic onto the main floor. And the reason we looked at doing that was because there was going to be a cost associated with getting those out of the attic. You had to, cut a hole in the ceiling. You had to brace it. It was kind of involved because these were big, big units. And so we thought, well, if we're going to have an expense to do that, let's consider moving them down out of the attic instead. And so that's what we did. And I planned to encumber money from last year instead of doing what I'm doing now, but I missed the deadline for that. And so now I'm just simply taking money in my budget and from another line item and just moving that into this project to kind of make it whole. And it's really just for the additional expense of moving it out of the attic is what that money is for. And I think long term, it was I think a better, serviceability is a little bit better having it on the main floor as compared to in the attic. Just repairs, and if they're ever had to be replaced again, it's a better situation. So,
Madam Chairman, that's why I asked Mr. Ray that question.
yeah.
Because what Marshall is telling us right now, they're in the attic now.
No, they've been cut out and removed, and the units are no longer there. But we had to redo the duct work and just the manual labor of just getting them out of the attic.
Was there a reason we had to do that, and when?
I'm sorry.
Was there a reason we had to move them, and when was that done?
The reason we did it was to avoid having to. We had to hire another contractor to brace to brace the ceiling. And can you imagine? It's kind of hard to envision, but we had to, if we were to remove those and replace the units in the attic with new ones, we would have had to cut the ceiling entirely open. And so in order to do that, you have to brace, you just can't cut a hole in the ceiling big enough to remove the units without having bracing, for that. So we'd have had to brace, pay an engineer to come up with a design to do it, brace, implement the design, brace it. And it would have been costly. We would have had to spend money either way. And so I just thought it would have been better just to spend money and put them on the main level as compared to keep them in the attic.
Okay, so they're on the main level now, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, explain to me what we're talking about right here in this resolution. That's where I'm
With that
confused.
resolution, we had, obviously money appropriated to buy the units, and the process to move them downstairs was an additional expense. And so I had planned to encumber money, from last year's budget that I had left over to do that. I missed the deadline on that. And so instead I'm just simply, taking money in my budget this year and just moving it to another line item. It's not increasing. I'm not asking to increase my budget, but to simply just move money within my budget to accommodate that.
Marshall, again, tell me what this resolution is. What are we talking about?
We're moving money out of one line item in my budget to another line item
To do what?
accomplish.
To do what?
To be able to afford to pay moving the units out of the attic into the downstairs.
I thought you said
It's simply just making that whole.
I think I
I
can.
thought they, excuse me, Robert. I thought you just said they was out of the attic. Marshall.
They are. I might not be clear about this, but we're just simply just taking money from one line item in my budget and moving it to another line item in the budget. I don't know.
I think I can speak to it, Alderman.
Okay,
Watt.
go ahead, Robert. Go ahead.
Essentially, back to my comments earlier, part of the reason this resolution is needed is, again, part of the budget was approved for assets for the Public Works Department. And this is kind of being repurposed out of the Public Works Department to be able to cover the additional work there. We're not appropriating any money. However, Public Works Department has determined, a use of this money that the board originally didn't approve, and you certainly wouldn't want to do that. Again, like I said, you wouldn't want the board to approve you to buy a vehicle and then turn around and buy a television with it, or some other sort of asset that was unapproved. So this is kind of getting the board's blessing on a different use of this funding for the Public Works Department.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, I have a question, one more question for Marshall, and then we're going to call the vote if nobody else has a question. What are you going to do what did you have that $30,000 earmarked for, Marshall, that you're going to have to do without?
We had set up in the assets category, like several vehicles of varying ages to be replaced. And within that, I think we still have enough flexibility. We have to modify the kind of vehicle we get. But I think there's still enough flexibility there to look at our fleet of vehicles and still make some good decisions on which ones we replace.
Okay.
And so I don't think we're going to be without anything. I think we're still going to be okay.
Good. I like that word, modify. Okay, committee, are we ready? Are we ready to vote?
Yes, ma'am.
okay,
Move to
thank you.
approve.
Okay, Alderman Waters
No,
and Alderman Woodcock said yes.
Yes.
Okay, and I say yes. Okay, that was approved.
Just
2
so
to
no
1.
one comes back, I made the motion. I don't know who seconded it. I didn't hear a second.
Oh, I'll second that. Do we need to revote?
I would, just for clarification purposes.
Okay, I was the second on that. Okay, moving along, Robert, the floor is going to be yours. Sales tax report, hotel motel tax, stormwater, cash flow, and the budget overage report.
All right.
Robert?
If everybody's okay, I will share my screen once more.
Yep.
I have quite a few things open. Okay, we are past this resolution here, and we are on the local sales tax. Good news once again. It's kind of a baffling couple of months on the sales tax portion, as I'm sure you can imagine, but we are up $46,164 over last year. This is for June collections for May activity. So everything you spent funds on in May is being reported here in the June figures. That leaves us at over our budgeted estimate for FY20, $671,176, which is 5.08% over our budget, which, you know, is obviously a good thing. Again, this is where I talk about baffling, how high these numbers are and anticipated when you kind of the juxtaposition there of where some other counties and cities are, municipalities are. I know some are down 5 or 6 million for June and or May activities, and but Sumner County's been pretty resilient. Some of the attributing factors here are stimulus checks. People are still funding those, but also just keeping an eye on unemployment rate has actually gone down since May. When April, it was around 14.8%. May, it was 10.2. And then in the most previous months, 9.3. I think, you know, if citizens aren't really seeing that, or telecommuting as becoming an option, I think, you know, their consumer confidence is still pretty high and isn't really affecting us currently. Going forward, and how long that lasts is still a major question mark, but it you know, certainly off to a strong start for fiscal year 2021. And it certainly doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. If anything, it's sort of speeding up and taking off. But we'll see, you know, in the months to come, we'll see how that, we'll see. If there's no questions, or if you have any questions, I'll be happy to come back to it. If I don't hear any, I'm just going to move on, and welcome to interrupt me at any point.
No, go on, because we're only have a few minutes left.
We got about 6 minutes. So hotel motel, this is one of our hardest hit outside of State Street Aid. Year over year, down $25,000. Well, that's some bad math there. I apologize. I can tell you the exact number in just one moment, but 15,176, that is 16,44,63. We're down 16,000 here. So I apologize that that's incorrect. Certainly happy to fix that. So, but yeah, it has month over month, April, May, and June, we have sort of doubled our business hotel motels. So people are starting to get out and travel a little bit more. But I know with our tournaments and everything, we anticipate a little bit more activity in the hotels. So that's good news, especially for the hotel motel occupancy tax. Projecting that forward, sort of this 16,000, even if it were at half, we would meet our budgeted estimate. So hopefully, knock on wood, that continues and we see this get back to normalcy at least, or a good percentage of it. So moving on to stormwater, kind of ending the fiscal year 20 numbers here. We collected 24,486 over what we budgeted. We budgeted 2.5, or 23,000, excuse me, we budgeted. And so we spent 2.6 million in fiscal year 2020 in activities. On the following, I'll go ahead and move to the following next page, because that'll really show the detail here. That first page being the majority of it obviously in drainage projects and professional services for engineering, but a little bit there for salaries and for the individuals working on it. Obviously that's, you know, it looks like we're going to have quite a fund balance. Gosh, expenses are way off here, so don't pay attention to this tab. I apologize. There's questions on stormwater, I'll move on.
Mm-mm.
Okay, cash flow analysis. This is the last 12 months. And then we've left June as a projection just because the fiscal year isn't quite closed yet. We've got a few invoices coming in that have to be accrued, and we can generally estimate what those will be, but certainly wouldn't want to show that if we knew changes were very possible and very possibly on the way. So it's looking like we're going to probably end in a $6.5 million fund balance. But again, that we start 7/1 paying debt payments, and between 6/30 and 7/1 we pay about $1.5 million. So that quickly can start to diminish. And as you've seen, the trend sort of year over year, July, August, September, October, we tend to, right before we start picking up property tax, we spend more and more and more. What this report will look like next month, I will have numbers here projected out for you for the next 3 to 4 months and how much we expect to collect, but alternatively, how much we have to keep from spending. What our limit is to be able to not have a tax anticipation notice or something along that line. So, I ultimately faring pretty well ending the fiscal year, but we've got a few more months before we can really know where we're headed. So after that, monthly overage report. What I want to make mention about this report, it needs to be reworked, but this is kind of what's continuing. And none of these departments have gone over their cumulative balance appropriated. By no means is anyone requiring an ordinance or anything like that. So any of these overages have been either netted against or resolutions have already occurred to cover them. But that's kind of where some of this needs to be reworked on our overage report, is certainly being able to say, I think it's a bit deceiving to say that a department went over because they may have a line item that has underspent by an equivalent or a higher amount.
Thank you, Robert.
Absolutely.
Robert, I wanted you also just to make a quick comment, because I know we're just about out of time. We discussed the comptroller's office and the acceptance of our new budget. And if you could share with the group what that was all about.
Absolutely. So for other business, yes, we did get our letter back from the auditors, from the comptroller's office, accepting our budget with budget approval from the comptroller's office. They typically list recommendations and or requirements if some of them are. And in this one, we are partially recommended and partially required to have a fund balance policy. And then alternatively, there are some other measures that you guys reporting wise will see from me month to month going forward, which certainly, we typically do this. That's why we go over the sales tax analysis and everything. But fund balance policy has been the biggest one that's highlighted within that letter as a something that needs to be developed and weighed in on, not just from the finance committee, but other department heads and board of mayor and aldermen. So you'll see that for you in coming months.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the committee?
I got a
Daryl?
quick question.
Hmm?
And I think Andy just got up, so if he's not in the room, he can get back to me later. But the hotel motel tax, we saw that slowly increasing, doubling each month over the last 2 or 3 months. Andy, do you see that as a correlation to the parks opening back up and having tournaments and more activity?
I see that and the sales tax as being, the park's a huge part of that, honestly. I think you'll see the July hotel number much closer to what we expect as normal. I can't tell you the exact number, but I know they've been at way more capacity than they were the previous 2 months.
And are we still kind of pushing some events off, or are we allowing to reschedule and schedule new events?
We have scheduled and rescheduled more new events than we've ever had. Some of the
That's
ones,
great.
and the good thing is we didn't lose any of our national tournaments. We didn't have to cancel any of those. We actually added a couple.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else?
Move to
Okay.
adjourn.
The,
Second.
okay. All in favor of adjourning, Mr. Waters,
Aye.
Daryl,
Aye.
and I. Meeting, our finance meeting is adjourned. Thank you.